Anatole France was a French poet, journalist and novelist, and in 1921 the winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. When he was a little boy, he read the story of the life of St. Simeon Stylites, that strange gentleman of ancient times who lived for over 30 years at the top of a 50-foot pole in pillar in Syria. For some reason, Anatole decided that he was called to perform a similar act of saintly heroism. So he went into the kitchen, climbed up on the kitchen cabinet, and stayed there all morning. At lunchtime, he got down. His mother, who understood what was happening, said, "Now you mustn't feel bad about this. You have at least made the attempt, which is more than most people have ever done. But you must remember that it is almost impossible to be a saint in your own kitchen." Impossible to be a saint in your own kitchen? I think she got that bit wrong, because that is in fact what we're all called to be, saints in our kitchens and our workplaces and our communities and so on. And when I think of this last year or so, and those times when children were unable to go to school and parents were trying to work from home all at the same time, I would have to say that we have had many, many saints in kitchens all over the place. So how do you describe a saint? And how do you understand the term, the communion of saints? You might remember that the Sunday before last at our 9:30 a.m. service, at our 9 a.m. service, we rejoiced with 3 young people who were confirmed. And many of us joined with them in saying, "I believe in the communion of saints." When you said those words, what did that mean to you? What did you think you were saying? Well, for me, the communion of saints refers to all God's people all around the world who sit or kneel or stand around the Lord's table, those who worship the Lord in 100 different ways, in a myriad of different voices, and express their solidarity with each other. The communion of saints for me refers to the many, many people who down through the ages have lived out their faith in all sorts of ways. Some of whom have become household names and have been held up as examples for us to follow. People like St. Francis and Mother Teresa. Others of whom have quietly done their thing, unheralded and unknown. The communion of saints for me refers to all those who have helped others in some way on their journey of life or in their journey of faith. So we look to the past, we look to the present, we look to the future. We are in communion with people of every time and place. And in a world where people are becoming increasingly isolated, either because of COVID, the polarisation of politics, spreading individualism, and so on, that sense of community is such an important thing to hold on to. So today we give thanks for our communities, and we celebrate the grace of God working through all sorts of people in all sorts of ways down through the ages. So who are the people you would like to give thanks for today? Who are the people who have influenced your lives? Who are the loved ones you hold dear, who connect with you in dreams, memories, and in stories? When I pondered this question, I found myself thinking of my grandparents, my mother's parents, who met and married in Canada. My grandmother was part Canadian Indian, First Nation. My grandfather was born in Sydney. They married and had 6 children, and over the years travelled far and wide. They were a quiet but very determined couple with a very strong faith and so many experiences to share. My grandfather loved being on the land, and he built a log cabin for the family to live in when they settled for a while near the Sunshine Coast. And it's still there. In fact, a few weeks ago, John and I went up and we searched for it and we found it. He then built a house on Magnetic Island and apparently made the bricks from which the house was made. They both died while I was still a teenager, and I just wish I had thought to sit down and ask them more about their lives. For instance, I would like to have known more about their faith, and given the gospel today, how they felt when one of their sons was tragically killed while still in his teens. How that impacted on their understanding of and relationship with God, and how they felt towards the young man who had been responsible for his death. So much to learn, so much to offer, and regrets that an opportunity there was missed for me. Our gospel today looks at that reality of loss, grief and sorrow, feelings that we all face at some time or other. Certainly when a loved one dies, but also when we face other losses in our lives. The loss of a dream, the loss of a marriage, the loss of direction, the loss of a job, the loss of health, sometimes the loss of faith and hope. In this gospel, we can recognise that desire that we've probably all felt at some time, the desire that death and difficult times could be avoided forever. We see and we feel the grief and the anger of the sisters mourning their brother. We hear their questions why, and we identify with Jesus' tears. Michael Marsh, an Episcopalian priest writing not long after the death of his own son, wrote these words: "I do not just know about Mary, Martha and Lazarus. There is a part of me that is each one of them. I am Mary, the one who stays at home, not wanting to get out, go anywhere or do anything. I just want to hide from it all. I am Martha with all my if-onlys. If only I had done. If only I had said. If only I could turn back time. If only you, Lord." There are so many ways in which I fill in the blank that follows, if only. And I am also Lazarus, stuck in the tomb of my grief, tied up and surrounded by the stench of death, unable to free myself and escape. I suspect there are quite a few of us who could identify with those very feelings. Mary, Martha and Lazarus had trod the path ahead of us. There is Mary, her heart wrenched by grief, who gives voice to not simply a question but a lament, even an accusation. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Perhaps Mary represents all of those who will come to church this Sunday heavy in grief, heavy in heart, the grief of their loss still afresh to the point of being overwhelming. Then there's Martha, who had asked the same question only moments earlier. We see her question and grief transformed into a courageous confession about resurrection in general. I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. And also a particular confession in Jesus, the one who delayed while her brother died. Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God. Perhaps Martha stands for all those whose faith in Jesus seems incredibly resilient and who thus serve as both a witness and an encouragement for the rest of us. She is also a reminder, when we cry out from the depths, God hears. When Jesus seems slow in coming, he is coming nonetheless. And then there's Lazarus, the one called forth from the tomb. He serves as a reminder of and a testimony to Jesus' power over death. And each one of us, I'm sure, have met or known people who have come through some incredibly difficult times, who may well serve as a contemporary Lazarus for us. So today, we follow in their footsteps, in the footsteps of Jesus, of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, in the footsteps of those whom we loved but are here no longer. We are called to be saints in the kitchen and elsewhere, not for the sake of proving ourselves to be better than others, not for the sake of one-upmanship, not for the sake of power, but rather for the sake of example, of model, of witness, and hopefully inspiration to those who will come after. Maybe then these words of St. Augustine may well apply to us. By passing along the narrow road, they widened it. And while they went along trampling on the rough ways, they went ahead of us. Amen.